Someone send this. Oh, yeah, that is recording.
Yeah, we're good.
Have a GitHub link that we should share for this presentation. Wait, what? I have to sign in. That's not right. All right, so I'm gonna have a I have a like a sandbox essentially for you guys to work with, like with a front end and back end application, like put together. And we're also gonna be talking more about like hosting those hosting that. So give me a second while I get that. It is called this hosting. So I'm gonna send this in both the Zoom chat and the random chat as well. So this is going to be a repository. What I would like you guys to do is fork the repository. You guys know how to fork, by the way. It's just simply just press the fork button. This way that you can actually deploy your application. When we deploy the application, it will be yours that we deploy, not mine, essentially. So yeah, that's the first thing. Does anyone not know what forking is? I can kind of go over it if you guys have it. Yes, please. Sure. Yeah. I mean, like there are multiple ways of actually like having a repository on your computer. Like for GitHub, for example, like you can either contribute to the main project or create your own project out of it. And to do that, what you want to do is go to this GitHub link and press the fork button on the top right-hand corner, and it'll give you some instructions in order to fork the repository to your user, right? And afterwards, you can clone the repository. Do you guys know how to clone the repository? Like just git clone, or do you guys use GitHub Desktop? Not yet? Okay. We assume that we can do that. But just a question, do you have Git on your computer, by the way, or?
I think so.
Yeah, sure. Like go on Git bash and see if something even pops up. Hello.
Hello.
Nice. You have Git posting /# resources. I can't post. I'm ripped. I'll post it in random right now, and then I'll post afterwards in once you guys give me permissions. So okay. Again in Zoom. All right. Again, and pretty simple fork. Press the fork button, and what will happen is you can fork this to a different repository. I already have the repository, so I don't want to fork this. But choose your owner, like which is probably your GitHub account, and do that. Afterwards, what I would say is go to your repository and go to the code and click the HTTPS clone, and that will help us clone the repository to your local computer. You guys can do that in the background, and I can help any of you guys after if you guys have any questions once we get to the demo portion. But I guess we can start the lecture right now. We will talk about backend and API. So first question is, who here knows what an API is? Sure, give it a shot.
It stands for application programmable interface. So it's basically like two applications can communicate and share data.
Yeah, exactly. So you mainly you guys haven't heard that. Basically, your web application is comprised of something called a front end and a back end, and one of them is usually designated to like for the user to view something content. That's the front end, and back end is a way for us to communicate with the front end and serve information that is needed, usually under something like a database, for example. Some persistent data that you don't that you want to get you want to control. So basically, what happens normally is that you have a web page. So if you guys load up any web page on the web right now, all the JavaScript on that page, like that front end, is viewable. So there are a few things that and it's also static, which means that it doesn't really change or it's not persistent, right? So that's the reason why we need a backend in order to serve information to that front end, essentially. So if you have any guys have built HTML, CSS website, static site, a portfolio website, you know that you have to hard code everything in. But with the backend, it's more flexibility. It allows you to add some resources essentially to that you can access and interact with. How briefly how the website works. So one of the backends that we're going to be using today is Node.js. So Node.js is a JavaScript runtime. And specifically, what that means is that normally JavaScript is run on the browser, but there's people who make it JavaScript, be able to be launched on your desktop and on servers. It allows us to build backends, to do exactly what we mentioned before. Specifically, like there's a lot of different like technicalities that I don't think are really important for this. But for JavaScript, like for Node.js, you have something called NPM, which is stand for Node Package Manager. So whenever you have your backend, you want to build like your API. There are going to be like packages that you want to install because not everything, all the functionality that you want is going to be available right at the get-go. So if you guys ever use something like pip, like this is basically pip for JavaScript or for Node.js, and it contains like both dependencies. It allows you to run different scripts, and we'll kind of take a look into it when we clone the different repository. So all that should be tested by then. But these are the basic commands right here. npm init allows you to create a new project, like a new package.json, and then install whenever you do install, you can install dependencies. I should also give this, share this to everyone else who is listening, so you guys can follow along. Oh, your repository? Good question. So there are, let me get there. There's 3 branches. So it's hard to hear us on Zoom. Is this better now? Do you guys hear us better?
Yes, it's better now.
Great. Okay. So everyone can access that on Zoom. These are the slides for the first part of the presentation. Then we're going to have the hosting part. Can I access this now? I can put it now. And this is the first slides, and I want just to make sure that everyone has the other slides for hosting. It's going to be available here. So that's what NPM is. We're going to go over an example of this. Package.json is very something similar. So this is kind of like this is an example of a package.json file, which NPM is going to create for any project you guys have. So if you guys ever done a React project, you probably also know what package.json is. For any Node project, that's what they use. And basically, there are scripts and dependencies mainly that are interesting to look into. So if you want to run your project, you can put them in scripts. If you want to do some debugging, you also put that in scripts. And these are the dependencies right here. And these kind of tell you what your project currently has installed and what dependencies you have and what libraries you have installed so far. So it's really good to check. Very commonly when installing these, like people don't install these libraries sometimes and they try to run the code and it just doesn't work for some reason. It's good to kind of check if you have all these installed, these dependencies installed. Okay. So I'm going to go up over at a very high level what an API is. So essentially, you guys have a database, and you want to be able to like serve data and like have users modify data in a controlled way, right? So you have a database right here, and there's really no way. This is like an abstract representation of a database, and you want to be able to like do 4 basic operations. You want to be able to read data. You want to be able to create new data. You want to be able to edit data, and you want to be able to delete data. Overall. So like this is just like a tabular database, very similar, kind of like what you guys would see in SQL. So what you guys like, these are the main operations that you guys mainly want to perform. And usually to do that, there's a way that you can interact with different databases, and they'll have usually like some code or some libraries that allow you to do each one of these operations. But that on a very high level, that's basically what you want to do. And when you create an API, that what you're essentially doing is you are allowing you are performing these operations and allowing your users to in order to make changes to the database and serve information from the database, and like doing that in a way where you have control over like what specific operations are possible, right? You don't want to give the user all control over the database, right? You just want to be able to have them do whatever they can do, right? So that's kind of the role of an API. So this kind of goes over everything we mentioned just before. There are a lot of technicalities on the bottom. We don't really have to go over that. A good example I'd like to give is how you would order food. So I guess just want to ask you curiously, like, or just by curiosity, like how would you order food? And I guess like this is a very common question, and this is also something that you guys can like consider generally, like breaking it down, right? Is that you commonly need like a menu, and you commonly need a like a waiter in order to take the orders from the menu, and finally you need a kitchen that will actually create and serve the fulfill your orders, right? So if you guys can think about all of that, the menu is essentially your front end. The waiter is your API, and the kitchen is your backend or your database, right? Because your and kind of showed it specifically right here. So like the menu is a user interface, and that's basically what the front end does. And it makes everything look pretty and like displays information for your users, and your users can make requests to the to your backend. And in this analogy, that's done by the API or the waiter. And the waiter has to be able to understand a variety of requests that you want to give them, and some like very simple like abstracted away. Like it could be like giving the kitchen customer order information. It can be like communicating expected outcomes. Like what if some like a dish isn't available? Like well will the who will like communicate that back? Will not be the chefs. It will probably be like the waiter who says like, hey, we're out of oranges or something like that, right? So yeah, that's the kind of the job of the API. And when you're writing your APIs, it's going to kind of be like that. And of course, we mentioned before, the kitchen is the backend. It has all the data, and and in this case, it's like serving food to you, and it keeps stock of inventory. Like you can think about the inventory like a database. And right here, I have down here a set of different images to kind of show like how like an API, a front end, and a backend kind of communicate. If that makes more sense. Yeah. So, and of course, as I mentioned before, if something we run out of something, for example, the waiter or the API will tell them like, you're out of out of lemons. And this is common. Like if you guys know what a 404 error is, if you ever go on a web page and see a 404, that is essentially like, the API saying, hey, look, this page doesn't exist. And as a result, it's similar to like also when you're making a request to the server, it'll pass 404, and the front end will say like, will show that there's like the page doesn't exist, right? So, okay, so kind of go over this right now. For this. At this point, does anyone have any questions? Because I know I want to get to the hosting portion of this a little bit quicker, but I know this hasn't been very organized, but does anyone have any questions on any of this? Maybe we can have a conversation, kind of solidify some understanding. No? Really? Yeah. I mean, it took some time to think about, but it's something that's pretty common as well, just in general, like a restaurant. Usually these are not perfect analogies, but this one is generally pretty good, right? So go to the hosting portion right now. I think we can go with this with a shameless plug right here, guys. If you guys want to take a look at TPEO, join us on Instagram. But at this point, we're going to be talking about like hosting your applications, and what I really want to do is kind of go through the portions, the lecture portions, and have you guys actually run the code that you guys want, that you guys will have to do. And essentially, the idea is we want to be able to host a front end and a back end together. And I have all the code like with React, with Node.js, all on GitHub. So when we get there, I'll tell you guys to clone that, and we can kind of go over how everything works. So essentially, our agenda is we're going to be talking about how hosting normally happens, the different options for hosting, and then go for a demo and give you some resources to read up a little more about. Okay, so we talked about front end and back ends already, but there are also like databases that are need to be hosted. Generally, these are like you can run all these locally, first of all, but you want to be able to have them on the web so that your users can actually use them from anywhere, right? So to do this, you need to be able to host. On the front end, essentially, you can think about normally like you have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And when you do React, essentially, it's kind of like an abstraction above that. So whenever you do React, you're writing like the HTML and stuff like that. Eventually, that will be converted into like a build file, and that build file is going to have like your HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and maybe some of your images that you're going to have for your websites, right? And they're all going to be used and served by a backend. That's a traditional way usually. So the backend and front end are usually put together essentially. So if you think about your backend be able to serve different requests from the database, you can also think that the backend will also be able to serve your content that you have on your front end, right? Maybe take a little bit to wrap your head around that, but that's essentially how the web really works, and that's how hosting kind of hosting and deploying kind of works as well. For your databases, normally you will be using a service like MongoDB or like Firebase in order to store your data, right? So if you want some user information, for example, you'll store them on the database on Firebase, and as a result, you don't actually have to worry about locally deploying locally having your Firebase on your computer, then posting it on the web, because those will already be available on the web, and you just have to use call these resources from your backend, and then it will be available for everyone to see. So those are the three main things you want to be able to know how to host overall, and there are going to be some varieties. And there's a fourth one, which is storage for files. So I don't want to get too much into this because I think this might be out of scope. But essentially, you can store user data on your database, but when you have files, like say images and whatnot, you won't store that on your database. Instead, you'll store you'll probably use a third-party provider that will keep your data, serve it on hosted on Firebase, and whatnot. And then on your database, you're going to have a link to that image, for example, and then that's going to be what's going to be served to you. So that's has anyone ever seen whenever you're opening a Discord message and you open an image? I guess I can try right now and actually show you guys how that might play out. So go to Discord. Are there any pictures here? There's one in random. Okay, cool. This one, right? So we have this image right here. Well, let's open this and see where it goes. And then, so this is where it's kind of hosted right here. This is the URL for which this image is hosted. And essentially, you won't store this file in the database. Instead, you'll store this URL, and that is how you're going to be able to host files. But again, as I said, it might be a little bit out of scope for this discussion right now. So I'll kind of go and just glance over it. If you guys have any questions on that, after class, definitely hit me up. I can talk to you a little bit more about it. So there's two main ways to host front ends and backends. As we mentioned, the first way is that your backend will be able to serve your front end data. So what you essentially want to do is when you have your React app, there's a way you can build an app. And this will also work for other frameworks such as Vue.js, Angular. But React is very common. I'm pretty sure everyone has heard of React before. If not, then we can kind of, I can give you guys some resources to read up on that as well. So usually it's hosting your front end and the back end together. So your back end will have a route, and that will normally be the base route, which is your URL, and that will host your front end. And you will also have your API different route, and essentially they'll be kind of calling each other, as the waiter and waitress, the waiter and restaurant analogy kind of goes. So to do this, normally you will have something called you probably heard of Heroku before. Heroku, DigitalOcean, AWS is a little bit more obscure, but Heroku is probably one of the more common things you guys hear when it comes to website hosting in this fashion. And this will essentially do exactly that. It will host a website. We'll couple the website together and host it as one package. And then there are also other trends that have been happening, because essentially hosting front ends are they're a complicated business, right? Because if you guys ever heard of search engine SEO, this something you probably heard how your web page is actually seen on the web. Essentially, there's a lot of different optimizations you can do to your front end. We're not going to go too much into this, but when you host the backend and front ends, you can choose to host them separately, because there are third-party applications or websites that allow you to host just your front end, essentially, by providing them that build file that we mentioned before. And what that will happen is it will allow you to optimize a lot of things. It will allow you to see analytics. So many websites allow you to see how many users visit your site and whatnot. And that's something you can't really get just from a Heroku site, just serving your backend in that manner. So there are pros and cons for both. And I hope I can get to at least the first one today, make sure that's not too confusing. But yeah, And there's something you have to deal with is course cross-origin resource sharing. Keep this in the back of your head because you won't have to deal with this until you deploy your app. Essentially what it means is that the web is usually is built on a protocol which tries to make your request safe. And in order to do that, it wants you to explicitly define like where, like if a request comes outside of the domain that that the server is on, then it has to like specifically request permission, and like you have to configure that. And because of that, like there's a lot of like weird edge cases, and it's very obscure and hard to debug. And therefore, it's it's a really big pain in the ass for most developers when dealing with that. But there are libraries in order to help mitigate this problem. So I'm not going to go over serverless. That's way out of the scope. But okay, let's get to the demo section, which is kind of our hosting. And before that, does anyone have any questions for anything we just mentioned before? I know it was like a fire hose of information, but we want to get to the demo and we kind of consolidate everything we've mentioned before.
Just a quick thing, could you share these slides as well? Could you share the previous ones? Could you share this one as well? Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I did that. Didn't I do that on the Discord? I shared both on the Discord, right? Yeah, just recheck the Discord. You might have not gotten it earlier, but I sent 2 links, and I think the second link is the one that these slides are going to be on. Let me know if you can find it.
Yeah, could you just put the link to the Discord on the Zoom chat? I just didn't know where to go for the Discord.
Sure. Yeah. Let me just share this. This is. And on the Discord, let's do that. And this is under resources. Yeah, this is the hosting web applications. The other one was Backend 3. So essentially, we have a curriculum in the in TPEO for the backend, like a whole curriculum. There's a whole like 5 lessons, 6 lessons on this. So we're really just going over the basics. So we want to make sure that you can like have something to play with and to use just in case you want to host your web applications. So thank you, Noah. Okay, great. No one has it now. Okay, let's get to this. So we have this GitHub link right here. And what we're going to do is we want to make sure that everyone can access this. And because you guys are going to be hosting, I want to make sure that everyone has forked this already. Oh, perfect. We have 7 forks already, which means a lot of you guys have already done that. As well, let's also make sure that, so basically how this whole thing is structured is that you have the main, which will give you some instructions, just some very basic overviews on the repository. A highlight of this is that there are 2 branches essentially. So main doesn't actually have anything on it, but we will be hosting, we'll have 2 examples essentially of hosting. Pretty sure we'll get to 1 today. So just make sure that you guys can actually host something. And that's going to be decoupled hosting. And I have like detailed instructions on all of this right now. So most of you guys, I assume that none of you guys have Firebase on your computer, right? Okay, so in that case, then we won't go over that portion right now. But everything is on the, all this is just like, all the instructions are already here, essentially. But essentially what I want you guys to do is clone this code on your local machine. So what you do is you go to click the fork button, and you have your own repository. I can give you an example, which is just it's a TPEO fork. So like, go to TPEO. So this is a fork repository right here. And what I'll do is I'll copy this and I go to my Visual Studio Code or like a terminal, and I will clone this. So let's find a place to do this. So I already have a hosting demo, which we won't use because that's cheating. And we'll go to, we'll make a new file, which is just hosting live, and then hosting live, and then create one of these, and get rid of these that we don't need anymore. And okay, so this is like a blank directory, and you guys can follow along with me, code with me, git clone, git clone, and this. and just copy and paste that clone link. Just make sure it's your link. For mine, like I forked it on TPEO essentially. And what I want to do right now is the first thing we want to do is actually like look into this folder and see what's actually in it. So as we mentioned, this is you want to switch our branch to a different branch. So what we want to do collectively is I'll make this bigger because I'm pretty sure that it's hard to see. We want to do git checkout. And then it is, I think it's coupled hosting. So this should autocomplete. Git checkout couple. Oh, I got to actually go into this thing. Git checkout coupled hosting. As you can see, we have a lot of different files right here. So what does this all mean? I'll try to just demystify this as much as I can. So as I mentioned before, there's a package.json right here. And we have some different files and libraries. So we have cores, as we mentioned before, the thing that was really annoying that no one wanted to deal with. So we already handled that for you guys. We have something called .env, which will allow you to create an environment variables. And you guys don't know what environment variables is. It's kind of like you have some certain like specific information on your environment that you don't want to push to your GitHub, and you would just keep them in an environment variable. And commonly, how this is done is you would create something called .env. So you just create a new file, not .nev. Rename this to .env, and I guess you put it in hosting demo. And then here you can define certain variables that you might not want your repository to kind of see. And I have an example of different environment variables that we want to have. And so these are mainly going to be the Firebase variables. And so at the moment, we're not going to be doing Firebase. It's okay to kind of skip this and to think about this. But if you guys want to like play around, you can always check to change the port. And why we have a port question, that might be a question. The reason why we have that is because it is we want to host our backend locally on a server, and the server will be simulated by actually having a port on our local machine. See, there's a lot of questions, by the way. Here's a link to Discord. Okay, cool. So right now we're going to leave all these other parts blank. Just for now, once you guys get to the Firebase in the future, maybe, or if we can do that later, if we have time to do that, then we can have that. Okay, so yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. So we have the .env on the git ignore file, and so this whole thing has already been set up essentially. So yeah, so we have the .env in the git ignore file. So you just want to make sure that it's like in other projects you want to make sure that you actually git ignore this, but in this case, the .git ignore already includes .env, which will mean that you won't be able to push .env to your GitHub, which means that your secret will be saved automatically. But this is just general practice. But in this case, we already did this. Okay, so we have a file, and of course, like this looks really complicated. And I'm also going to kind of get rid of all of this because that's the Firebase portions that we're not going to be using. So this looks really complicated, and I'll try to digest this down. This is the backend right here. More commonly, we have something called Express. This is a library that allows us to create like a web application on our computer, because Node.js is a JavaScript environment, a runtime environment, but you can create more than just web applications. Express is a library that is a very common library that Node.js has that can allow you to create web applications specifically. So just that's that. You want to configure your environment variables, and we're just defining a lot of different pieces right here. This is the main thing like that you're going to be using. It's called app. App is going to be like where you call app in order to create some of your routes, which are essentially like locations where you can call like your API essentially, and we can show that in a sec. And so this is an example of a route. I'm also going to kind of get rid of that because that's the Firebase portion that we don't need right now. So here's an example of a route right here. So essentially, you have a few things on here. So one, you have like a location you specify. It's like /hello in this case. And then instruction is that you also have a get. So there are many different requests that you can make to an API. Usually the common ones, these are called HTTP requests. And essentially, there are four of them mainly. One is get, the other one's post, and then put, and then delete. The way I can like best explain this is, remember from before on the first presentation that I made right earlier, that we have like database operations, right? So we want to be able to create new entries in the database. We want to be able to get new entries in the database. We want to update and delete them, right? This kind of corresponds to that right there. Right now, of course, we don't really have a database to work with. We could just create one using like just using a JSON object on JavaScript. If you guys have taken the TPEO like intro course, you guys probably know like what like objects are, right? So we can probably do that, but for now, like we're just going to make it very basic, and we're just going to return a message that says testing is sending hello, and that will just indicate that you actually have something working, right? Okay, so and then of course res.json. This just means response. So this is telling the server you want to return a JSON. So res is result, and JSON is what you want to is the file type you want to return. And then there's also something called res.send, which can also be something that you can use. But right now we're just going to send over JSON. This is what is most commonly used on web applications. Is you send back JSON files for your front end. You kind of see. Of course, you can send a whole different type, a lot of variety of files, right? You can, as we mentioned before, we can send back HTML files, we can send back image files, we can send back everything, like essentially. But in this case, we're just going to be sending back a JSON, which is just like a very universal way of communicating, like a universal object that can be used to communicate between the front end and back end. That's really commonly used. Okay, so I can also get rid of this. Why is this will be the hosting portion. It looks a little complicated, but let's make sure that first that we can actually call our backend, right? So what I want you guys to do is, you guys have npm right now. Go into the demo folder and do npm install. And what that'll do is that'll install the dependencies that you already have and create something called a node module folder, which will just contain all the libraries just like as JavaScript files. And you see right there, it was already been created on the top left. Oh, sure, yeah. Not very effective. Oh, that's effective. Try this one. There we go. All right. So we ran npm install, and like this should install all the dependencies. And hopefully none of you guys will have any like errors. But essentially when it says found 0 vulnerabilities, there's no errors, we assume everything is good, right? And then afterwards, I would like you guys to run npm run start, which is the script that we mentioned right here, which is just node index.js. This is essentially, if you guys were in the TPEO course, you guys know like running node index.js. This is the same thing. This is just like a proxy. You can just say, instead of you run npm run start, but you also write node index.js. It's just a faster way of doing it and a more standard, not being like needing to type in node and index.js every time. And it says that you're listening on port 5000 right now. And so if I search up, we go on port 5000. So I go to localhost 5000, and I do / and then I remember the endpoint that we mentioned that we wanted to do before, which is /hello. Then we type in /hello. It should serve us a JSON file sending hello, sending hello. And this is like really commonly how things are sent through the web. Your front end will actually just call these backends and get information from them. And there's a lot more complicated things like post requests, which will actually change data. But very commonly for this situation, we just want to be able to get something back from the backend. And as long as this works, like I guess everything's working smoothly. So I'll give you some time to start doing that. If you guys have any questions, just keep it in the chat. I'll give you guys like 2 minutes or so to play around with that to make sure that we're on the same state. Get an error? Yeah, make sure you comment on all of these. Then try again, and we should. I just already used. Are you already running? What you can do is change your port if you like. So instead now try localhost 4000/hello and just make sure that that would work. I'll get you first.
So at the hardware.
Loaded? Oh, okay, cool. So here, you component, right? So here. So
No, I don't think.
oh, you haven't closed yet. Okay, so I'll just read a. You want to see all like the history, like all these commands actually remember them in history that will allow you to see the last commands. So then you want to go into this thing, go open up the code and here. Oh yeah, that's the second part where we actually serve the fun. Sure. So what you want to do is navigate towards the directory you want to from this. Usually, so if this is fine, right? Yeah, we can do that. Try that. Balance. And then type in get clone and the repository. How you do that is actually go to get this. Yeah. And you just have this. And you just have this. Okay, first. No, good. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, it's Firebase.
So do you want to clone the
Good.
Oh, I was just gonna like, yeah, I'm good. I got like something to run.
Oh, sick. Cool. Continue. Does anyone online need a little help? Well, essentially what we did is it might not be running because you guys have to can't delete the parts that had Firebase inside it all the way up to the app/get hello. This is just one endpoint that we have. Yeah, speak up anyone who might need help. I'm here to help. Okay, cool. Looks like everyone got this, or we'll be able to figure it out. Cool. Are you guys good? You guys need some help, or?
I kind of know some.
Oh, perfect. Nice. Okay, guys, we have like 10 minutes, so let's get continue for everything else. Oh, just yeah, you can I can go after, right? Okay, cool. So we have all this. Okay, so next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna be hosting the front end. So the front end, if you guys know React, it should look familiar, but if not, then we can talk about this after. But essentially what you guys want to do is you guys want to go to the front end folder, which is my app, cd hosting demo, cd my app. And then you just want to run npm install and then that will install the dependencies for React, and then write npm run build, and that will build your application and export it to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript essentially. We have 7 minutes or so left. Yeah, we kind of do. So I'll make sure that we can, anyone who needs help can get help after if they need it. Oh, Jason. Hey, Jason, shout out to Jason, my roommates, for coming over here. Oh, he was sleeping. Hosting you so much. Okay, cool. So when this is installed, essentially, then we run npm run build. This will run. This will build the application in the background. What I want to kind of get done in parallel right now is Heroku. So you guys can create a Heroku account. I know we're going pretty fast overall. But I already have a Heroku account made right now, but I mean, it's just creating an account, get you on an email and whatnot. And I'm going to create a new project. And of course, all this we like recorded, so you guys can kind of reference that. But we're going to create a new app. What do we want to call this app? Don't know. Pizza. All right, does everyone like pizza? Pizza's not available. Humanitarian pizza. All right, cool. That is available. Let's go. So I think this Heroku is the site that we mentioned before that we will be using to host our front end and back end. And we host it all on one, one link, right? So what you guys want to do is download the Heroku CLI, which is also something that I have linked inside the instructions for the GitHub repo, and it'll be like do this installer right here, and this will and run this, and this will basically install Heroku on your computer and allow you to connect to the server and get information and host your application through Git. So I already have this here, so I'm going to do Heroku login with. Yes, I meant login. That's smart. They actually know that I kind of messed up. Okay, and this will open up a browser, and we will basically press login. And this will essentially work. And as you can see right here, I'm logged in using my DTO. Next thing I want to do is I want to check if the other terminal has actually finished working already. So all right, nice. Yeah, so the build has been already done. So we can move forward to actually deploying this thing. Almost there. What I want to do is they have instructions on Heroku right here. So this is humanitarian pizza. And essentially what we want to do is, because we already have a Git repository, so we just have to copy paste this into our terminal. And this will kind of link our repository right here into the Heroku, onto the Heroku servers. So do this, and Git Heroku is here. Hopefully everything goes well. What we will do is we'll be able to push our current branch onto Heroku. So I just want to make sure everything is there. What you're going to do is do git push Heroku, which specifies where you want to push it, like to the Heroku servers or to the Git servers. And then you want to mention the branch, which is coupled hosting, and then do main. And essentially breaking this down, essentially it would be, we want to push to the Heroku servers. We want to push this branch, our branch, and we want to push it to the Heroku's main, right? So, I mean, that's just some, you guys know like main and master branches, essentially. It's kind of like a way, like it's just a standard right? And if you don't push it to main, you won't actually deploy your application because Heroku assumes that you want that your application is to be hosted on. So this is just a way for us to host our app and like specify that we want to host it on Heroku's main, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, this works. Okay, and you're going to have a lot of different logs here. While this runs, I will take questions and help requests. I'm here to help everyone if need be. And there's a lot. Does everyone make sure if anyone wants to get a Heroku account, make sure you guys can get one right now. If you guys have any trouble with that, let me know. I'll walk around.
Yeah. We're running low. Is this room going to be like used for next? You to be used, but we can just. Yeah, I agree. So. Was it seek permission, not forgiveness? No, it's ask for forgiveness, not permission.
That's a man of culture, I think. Okay, so I guess it followed us to this point. I guess any questions, just in general, on what's happening, because there was a lot that just happened. And as you guys can see, this thing has been deployed to Heroku. And let me just follow link. I cannot open this. Yeah. Humanitarian pizza Heroku. An application error. Okay, so we have to actually figure out why this is failing right now. Heroku logs fail. Okay, most commonly we won't have everything completely working immediately. Get / Heroku pizza does not. Private key process input.admin private key replace everything. Oh, I see. The reason why this didn't work is because we actually have to push our changes, because before the changes we had the admin key from the Firebase. So put on your software engineering hats and just this is just making a new commit. Then we run git push Heroku again, and that should work. So yeah. The commands I ran were it was called tail. So it's Heroku logs tail. So when you connect your Heroku and deploy something to it, it will generate some logs. It'll help you, guide you to see like if something has worked or if something has not been working. And in this case, it didn't work immediately because we didn't push everything. So where we all, I guess to be honest, it's fine if you got lost in a certain portion. Oh yeah. Sure, yeah. So there's there's this Heroku. I know if your brain's not overloaded, you're looking at Sure, yeah. Just push and hopefully it works. Maybe third time's a charm, but there we go. We have an app hosted. 2 minutes. This is just a React app.
Wait, did you make the icon or is that right?
This icon right here? No, this is just a React app.
It's React app.
Yeah, we can go over that later. See you guys. 2 minutes. Alrighty, cool then. If anyone wants to stay by, I can help like specific like issues and want to make sure that you guys get this working. went kind of fast overall. Hopefully all of this, since all this is recorded, you guys can take a look back and kind of reference that. It'll be provided, and we'll send a link to it in the Discord. So we'll have to process a little bit now. So.
If you don't have the Discord, you can ask me now. Get you on.
Next workshop will start. But you guys can want to contact me, like I'm on the Discord right now. I put some links, just DM me, and as well, like if any of you guys are on a TPEO Discord or TPEO Slack as well, you can just Slack me on that as well. Be happy to help. Oh yeah. So we have a conference next week on product engineering and design. We have some really like higher up exec fellows, exec from like top companies, like from startups, and they're gonna come and speak. And it's a great great opportunity to learn more about software engineering, product and design. And it's gonna be really fun. Like last time we hosted, we had like over 200 people on the conference. This year we have around 300, over 300 people already signed up for it. So it'd be great if you guys can kind of come, and the slides are right here. So let's click register for APC. It'd be great overall. Anyone can kind of join as well. So there's that. Oh yes, I think we can stop recording and we can begin on.
I'm gonna